Well, the White House says the president is experiencing only mild symptoms, including a low-grade fever and fatigue, and he's already taken an experimental antibody cocktail drug. Let's bring in Dr. Peter Chin-Hong, infectious disease specialist at UCSF. Thanks, doctor, for joining us again. Tell us about this drug by Regeneron. How safe is this treatment, and what is it supposed to do? Reduce his symptoms and prevent them from getting worse?
First of all, Janelle, thanks for having me on. The first thing I'd like to say to everyone is that COVID is not a hoax and really wear your mask. And I think this really emphasizes that need for all of us to do that. Regarding the treatment, it's a cocktail of antibodies. So it's very similar to the idea of convalescent plasma, where you take the fighting cells and you give it to somebody who hasn't had the time to develop those fighting cells yet. Except that it's made in a factory. You take the elite fighting cells or antibodies, you make more of them, and you deliver it in a standardized way to patients. It's very safe, but it hasn't really been studied extensively as yet. These are ongoing and randomized controlled trials.
So the president showing only mild symptoms right now, doctor. We don't know if this treatment's going to work. Will these symptoms stay this way, or could it get worse, and how soon would we know?
So if President Trump were my patient, I'll be very worried, actually. He's older, he's 74, he's obese. And, you know, looking at that video on Twitter, I feel a little bit concerned just from the way he was huddled, the way he didn't seem his normal self. So we would look at him in the hospital and look for the first stage, which will be need for oxygen. I think they outlined a period of days you'd be watching someone just because after a certain time, people literally fall off the cliff, meaning they require a lot more oxygen. They may need a breathing tube and additional therapies. So this is all if things, don't go well. Of course, he can also recover, in which case he'd still need to be isolated until he has no symptoms for 24 hours, and then he can go about his regular business.
We don't know yet how the president got COVID, but he's positive. He may have exposed others. Now, what is that window that he could have exposed others? And is this what we talk about when we talk about COVID clusters? Is this how they happen?
Exactly. And I'm really worried, Janelle, about the White House staff in general. They are in close contact with the president. He's not used to wearing a mask. He's probably come into contact with tons of people, and again, this would be a contact tracing nightmare. One would wonder if the whole senior staff should be quarantined, which is different from isolation, which is keeping sick people away from well people. In quarantine, you reduce the activities of people who might have been exposed to the virus.
Okay, we have to go. We're out of time, but before we let you go, like Ivanka Trump, his daughter has tested negative, but she has been around him all week. Could she test positive later?
The incubation period is up to 7 days, so theoretically possible you can get a false negative test like Joe Biden. If you've been exposed, you'd have to repeat the test to be certain that you're not going to incubate to become infected.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see. Dr. Peter Chin-Hong with UCSF, thanks for your time tonight.